Hi everybody, it's Dee Reinhardt with Illinois WorkNet. Today we are going to be talking about an update that we made to the career plan for the customers who are working and who are being made inactive, and also for their subsidized wage. And one of the things that I did right now is I just made a new customer eligible and enrolled them. And so I'm on the step where I would add the customer service for the employment. So I'm going to pick an employer here. I'm going to go back to the end of the list and try and find somebody. So when you pick the employer, it automatically adds the information to the customer's profile there. When you enter the minimum wage, so this is all old hat, but I want to show you what's going on with it. Minimum wage for placement is going to be the $15, not $150. Hourly wage for placement is $15. We have a subsidized wage, and it's $13 in the city and $10 in the rest of the state. Is that moving forward? I think that's moving forward. So here we're going to just do 10, which means that the unsubsidized wage match for the employer would be $5. We moved a couple of items around in this page so that the dates would all be together. The employment type is going to be full-time, and we're going to open the activity with a start. So up here we're putting a start date of today. Actually, I'm going to show you what happens. I'm going to put in a start date of 5/15 because maybe you're just catching up on some things. So we're going to do 5/15, and they have not ended yet. If you were to pick the inactive status, these inactive dates would open up. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to save this customer as 5/15. We have a subsidized wage start date, subsidized start date here. Let me make this just a hair bigger. I do not have the instructions ready for this yet. So I will finish those and upload those because this has not been pushed to production yet. It's still in test because we had a couple of glitches this morning, but we will be pushing this out. It should be active by the end of the week with the instructions uploaded to the CYEP partner page. So if we have a subsidized start date and it was the day that the customer started the job, then you would pick that date. If it was any other date, then you would pick that particular date. And what happens is the number of days count across all of the jobs that the customer has had. So this is going to be 37.5 hours a week. It's not WIOA funded. We're not putting in any other notes. We can select some situations here, but if we update the customer service, we have that they have gotten an individual employment plan. It's an automatic case note. So here we're just doing started employment. Now, one thing, Brandon, minimum wage, Jim, minimum wage is based on what the minimum wage is for your area. So if the minimum wage, and for training purposes, minimum wage does not have to be what the minimum wage is for everybody, because minimum wage for training can be less than what the actual minimum wage is, according to state law. Right now, the minimum wage might be $13, it might be $17, depending on what the position is. And your subsidized wage till June 30th, possibly with an extension, and Brandon can address that in a couple of minutes, might be a different wage. So right now, you're just going to enter what the actual minimum wage is. So we started employment, And we are just putting customer began permanent employment, and I just spelled this wrong. And if you want to send it to somebody, you can. If you don't, you just want it to go into the case files, you can save a case note without sending a message or email. Add the case note. So this helps you figure out, I forgot to add the goal. So what this will do is it will move it. Now, if you all of a sudden say this was, and Brandon, do you want to talk, let's talk about what you emailed me about just before. Let me unmute you. You might have to unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So what I was emailing about is what we discussed yesterday, those providers that were on the 2 o'clock call, how youth would be able to still get paid for past 90 days of subsidized wages because they lost some work experience because of the COVID-19. And I know we discussed this earlier, and it hadn't came out yet, but now there's going to be new programming in June where the youth will be able to get paid past that 90 days.
So what we decided to do, instead of changing around what was going on, we're going to leave this subsidized wage in place. And with this new subsidized start date, you can put in when the start date is, and then when they actually complete their 90 days of employment, then you can put in the end date and take out the subsidized wage. It will show up on the dashboard as over 90 days, but if we have case notes that reflect COVID, then Brandon and Nicole can track which ones of those pieces were related to that extra bit of funding that you guys have to consider. So when we do this now, we would have a subsidized start date range, and if it ends early, you would enter that end date, take out the wage here in the subsidized to make it 0, and then that case note would pop up again. Now, let me update this customer service, and I'm going to just add this case note. So now it has processed. We have a status history in here as well. See, the status history is a new piece. All you have to do is update the customer service. It's also going to track the days in subsidized employment. So I had taken out the wage, so it didn't, oh, this is a glitch. I'm gonna have to have him fix this. It put it in, but it didn't track the dates properly. So I'm going to have our programmer fix this. This is what we were playing with. We had one gentleman, when we were testing, it had 37,000 days of subsidized employment, which was not going to work. The next piece that I showed you, I believe last time we had a webinar, is if you check this person as inactive, these 2 dates, inactive date, open up for you to enter a date. So say we started the subsidized wage on 5/15, but the customer went inactive on 5/20, but then returned on 5/25. Oh, sorry, wrong. Oh, that's fine. No, we can't do that because it's in the future. I meant to do May 25th. Let's do May 29th. And then if you save the update, this is inactive status. Customer was inactive because of XYZ, and then you can save it as a case note. Obviously, you're not going to put XYZ, you're going to put an actual message. And then we now have that the on hold status was in here and had a total days of 9 in subsidized employment. So that's counting from May 15th to May 20th, and then from May 29th till today. So it's a 9 total days in subsidized employment. So that will track those subsidized days for you. Are there any questions about that? And Brandon, did I cover the COVID piece well enough for you?
Yes, thank you. And there's going to be more coming out, that the people that are doing, the providers that are going to do the extra programming in June with more guidance, because I know, I mean, it's confusing even for me right now with all these changes. We've got regular CYEP programming going on, then we've got extra COVID-19 programming going on in June, and then there's a third different CYEP, that's the grant extension in July. So there's 3 different things going on right now. So there'll be more guidance about this June programming coming out.
Okay. All right. Do we have any questions about the new subsidized wage date or the inactive dates on here? All right. I did not do numbers this morning because I was working on testing. Are there any questions from anybody? I know we had some user management things going on this morning. Are there any questions that I can help any of you with user management?
I actually have a question so when they transition, once they get through their 90 days and they transition, before I used to be able to put it, close up, give them a end date, and then go back in and put in a start date that they have in their unsubsidized, because the goal is to get them to transition from subsidized to unsubsidized, and then they start off and we would get credit. Now I'm putting stuff in the same way as I always have, and it's not registering on people that have transitioned into unsubsidized wages. And then when I just did this morning, I have a one that they actually stayed at the employer, and I put in their start date. I put in their end date as their subsidized and put in their start date for their unsubsidized, and it just updated, and instead of 2 slots, it started as if yesterday was the start date. As if that was their first day.
I'm not quite sure why you're doing that way. Are you putting in 2 different employment pieces? You may have muted yourself again. Jay Hanna from SGA. Right, and there's a question from LaDon Brumfield, just to confirm, given the extension, are we closing out everyone by July rather than the end of June?
Well, I think so, but I'm not for sure on that yet. I've got to wait till the new stuff comes out from Carrie. I would think so, end of July, yes, if you do the extension.
Is everybody doing the extension, or is that?
It's due by tomorrow, the application.
Okay. Okay. Jay Hanna from SGA. I had a follow-up question for you and
Yes, I'm here.
okay, so did you do 2 separate placements?
Yes, I did it under 2 separate placements, but then it went into one. It like when I saved it, it had pushed it back to the one, and it just started like the unsubsidized employment and took everything out that was subsidized.
Okay, so was it at the same exact location?
Yes, yes.
Oh, so you shouldn't have put in 2 positions. You should have just done the 1 position and it would take out the subsidized wage and just continue rolling on the.
I tried doing that first, and it did not save anything for the subsidized. Like your 90 days, it had started completely over for unsubsidized as the 90 days.
Okay, why don't we stay on the webinar after I'm done recording, and then you and I can talk through this, because I don't want to show real data on the recording.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions that I can show you with test data? Okay, so I'm going to close out the recording.